Welcome to the Functional and Integrative Medicine Podcast. This podcast is all about exploring root cause medicine, showcasing the power of this approach, and inspiring other medical providers to follow this incredible path. I'm your host, Ginger Allen, and founder of Your Medical Liaison, a medical marketing agency working with medical providers since 2012. My passion for root cause medicine and provider advocacy drives me to help medical providers who have incorporated functional and integrative medicine into their practices. So let's dive in. This brings a powerful blend of personal healing and professional expertise to the world of functional medicine marketing. We're excited to welcome Allie Chandler, founder of Upsell Health, a marketing strategist who helps functional medicine providers and wellness brands grow without burning out. After her own journey from being bedbound with chronic Lyme to building a thriving business, Allie discovered her passion of helping healers share their message with clarity, confidence, and impact. With over 11 years of experience, she's held leadership roles at top industry innovators like Cellcore Biosciences, Microbiome Labs, and Novozymes One Health, where she scaled brands from 60 to 100 million in revenue, launched over 21 products, and has driven more than 1.3 million per month in Amazon sales. Allie holds a master's in writing from California College of Arts and is certified as a Lyme specialist. Her work bridges science and storytelling to help practitioners attract aligned clients and grow practices that reflect their values. She's the creator of the Practitioner Archetype Framework and the Wellness Marketing Playbook, tools that empower providers to show up authentically and sustainably in their marketing. If you've ever struggled with marketing your practice or reaching the right patients, this episode is packed with practical insights from someone who truly understands both the healing journey and the business side of medicine. Let's welcome Allie to the show. Hi, Allie.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
We are super excited to have you on the show. And since we're both in medical marketing, people may be wondering, why would you have a medical marketing person on the show, Ginger? Well, the truth is that, you know what? There's stuff that Allie knows that I don't know. There's stuff I know that Allie doesn't know. And we're here to provide value and insights to our following, which is a physician-based following. And so I was happy to have you on the show. Plus, we talked about, the fact that I'm abundance mindset, you're abundance mindset. There's enough business for everyone. And we just really want to help providers and bring them some education about marketing. So this is going to be a cool podcast.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. And I love what you guys have been doing for almost 15 years, right? You've been in business for quite a long time. So it'll be interesting to kind of share perspectives and see, with our different backgrounds and see what's similar and see what we think. So it'll be fun.
Yeah. So today we're going to kind of start out, talking about you a little bit, get a little more insight. So can you share what you do at Upsell Health and how you help functional and integrative medicine providers grow their practices?
Sure. Yeah. So as you said in my intro, I started off in the functional medicine industry on the supplement side. So a lot of my background is doing marketing and events for supplement companies, different trade shows, and I've done, Amazon, direct to consumer, direct to HCP. So that's really where my bread and butter is. A lot of my clients are supplement companies. I do work with practitioners too in clinics as well, but I actually didn't mean to start my business. It kind of started itself after I worked at Cellcore. I started ECO was one of the events that Cellcore does. And I had just met a lot of practitioners through helping with our yearly event. And so when I left Cellcore, one of my doctor friends I had made texted me and he was like, "Hey, I heard you're a free agent now. Are you going to start a company?" And I was like, I hadn't really thought about exactly what my plan was after this. So I just started in 2019. And, within a couple of days, had a few clients, just word of mouth. And then we kind of grew into a little agency. But we are really focused on helping practitioners through strategic marketing, but also really authentic marketing. That's important to us. And also, as I'm sure you also speak about, not having these sort of like cookie cutter formulas, because all practitioners are different. They have different strengths, they have different needs and what they are trying to do in their business. So it's really digging in and finding out, what is your voice? Who is your brand? Like who do you want to be in the market? Because like you said, with abundance mindset, I think a lot of practitioners can get into this space of so many people are talking about mold, or so many people are already educating about Lyme disease. Like, how do I fit into that? But like you said, there's space for everyone in this market, and it's really helping them find like a little specific niche that they can latch onto and something they can specialize in to help other people, help find clients and help them heal. So with Upsell Health, we do a lot with our practitioner archetype, which you can see my little neon sign
Yeah.
behind me. So we have a quiz that we have practitioners take, and they just get sorted into one of 15 archetypes. And from there, there's like a data-driven practitioner, a rebel disruptor, a mystic cosmic. There's all these different kind of types of practitioners that they can be. And we really dive into the psychology behind, what are your core wounds? What are your motivations as a practitioner? What are your fears? And how does that sort of impact what channels you're on, and like who your avatar is? What does your email welcome series look like based on this archetype system? So it's kind of a fun little way that we bring them into the fold and help them sort of understand themselves more, to kind of understand their brand. And I know you guys do a lot of work with like branding and marketing and
Oh,
everything
sure.
like that too. So it's interesting to see. I feel like a lot of practitioners need just a little bit of guidance and a little bit of pushing into like, hey, what if you focus on this or specialize in this? So we do a lot of that like work on the front end, and then it's just kind of the normal, like, how do we get leads and automations and social podcasts, all that kind of stuff, lead magnets and everything. So it's really fun.
I love it. And I can tell that you love what you do just like I do. So it makes it fun.
Yeah.
So I want to dive in a little bit because we do want to bring value to the show today. And, being that you are a supplement marketing expert, I would love to, pick your brain a little on this. So,
Yeah.
I have so many practitioners that I've worked with or that I've done a clarity call with that, they're giving all of their business to Full Script or Get Healthy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are we doing that? Like,
Yeah.
we need to set up your own WooCommerce, set up your own Shopify,
Yeah.
put the money in your pocket.
Mhm.
There are ways that, a lot of, and I'm sure you find this too, but I wanted your thoughts on specifically the supplement side of it.
Yeah.
There's companies like Carewell now that will
Yeah.
make it easier to, stock the inventory, drop ship the
Fill
inventory,
it.
stuff like that.
Mhm.
Let's talk about that for a minute. So what is your thoughts on whether a physician should have their own supplement store? Should they have their own brand? I have one client that we did a white label for. Yeah, give us some insights into the supplement
Yeah,
world and what our practitioners should be doing and
for
what they
sure.
shouldn't be doing.
For sure. Yeah. And I think full script and, that kind of thing is great for people who are just starting out with their brand, because it's easy for patients, right? There's like 300 brands on full script. It's simple for them, just kind of like log in and get everything that they need in one place. But once you get past that sort of like startup phase of really building your own brand, you're really not making a lot of money on those sales. Not obviously not nearly as much as you could be by having your own, supplement line. So I actually have a client right now. I'm taking him through creating his own glutathione supplements because he works with Alzheimer's and dementia. And he's recommending glutathione to every single client in every case. Like, hey, start here. This is great for your brain health. And we were actually, when I started working with him, he was selling it through an affiliate link, not even full script. He was making 10% on it. And I was like, oh, that's painful. So we're in the middle of speaking with someone I know who is a CMO, and then they have a fulfillment branch, right? Like built in, where it's like $40 a month to store a pallet, and it's a pick fee, you just keep your stuff there. There's a little bit of a fee when they pick and ship, but he's going to be making like 60% margin now, which is obviously incredible. And I'm like, you're doing this at such volume that if you want to make some money on supplements, it's a good idea. And it's obviously not for everyone. Not everyone's really in a place to manage that. And it really depends on MOQs. If, there's a couple of supplements we were trying to make for him that just had a really high minimum order, and he didn't want to front like $30,000-$40,000, which I get, because you want to like test it and make sure you can sell it on your own and make sure it goes well. But like you said, with white label, that's a great way to start, because a lot of times some of these places that can create your private label, white label, you have a really low MOQ. Like there's another product we're going to create with him, a magnesium product, and it's 24 bottles is all that you need to order to get started, because it's just a private label, white label. So I think it's a good place to look for people, especially if you're planning on pairing it with education. So for him, we're creating a glutathione first course, and we'll have them sort of feed each other, where if people are looking to work on brain health, hey, take this course if you want to learn, and with the course, do a topical and an oral glutathione. So it's nice. I always try to think about, and I know you do too, what's the strategy? Like, how are we going to sell the product? How are we going to launch it? So I think if they have an established list and they have a following and everything, then it's a great move for them to kind of go their own route. But in the meantime, if you're doing full script, that's great. It's convenient for patients, but I always try to push them toward, like, you can make a lot more money if you do your own thing. So I think, yeah, it depends on where you are in your business and where you're at in scaling.
Yeah, and I tell my clients, our practitioners are working on, such small margins now, and it's so expensive to be, run a medical practice nowadays. I'm always
Right.
trying to find little ways to increase their ROI, right? To bring that
Mhm.
revenue in-house instead of giving it to someone else. And, full script, as convenient as it is, I take the majority of the money. And, what I tell my docs is, if like you shared about the glutathione, if you're recommending vitamin D to 99% of your patients,
Yes.
you know, get set up with New Medica. They'll drop ship. Even, you can just, do the New Medica product. You don't even have to private label, which New
Yeah.
Medica does offer. I'd like to let practitioners know that New Medica does allow a private label packaging through their line, which is super cool. Body Bio won't allow that. Thorne won't allow that.
Right.
New Medica, which is a fantastic product, does allow that. Set up your own little WooCommerce
Yeah.
store, and even if you just bought it and sold it to your patients that are coming in, if you're virtual, then obviously you need the drop shipping. But if they're coming into a brick and mortar, you could be selling it to them right there and putting that that money in your pocket every day. So I love that you have that strong background in the supplement world, because I think that's a big part of this particular practice model's regimen, as part of, they use every day, right? It's one of their tools in their toolbox. So
And yeah, and I think a lot of people in the functional medicine space are looking at what's out there, and they're saying, like, okay, well, why are there sugar alcohols in this? Why are we putting, like, fillers and excipients and all these extra things? So a lot of my practitioners who are looking toward making their own lines, they're trying to, like, strip them down and make them as, excipient free and as pure as possible, which I totally get, because at least my clients are working with a very chronic illness audience, like Lyme, mold, MCAS, all these things where people are pretty reactive to things. So
yeah.
the more that you can, like, pull out of these supplements, I think the better. So a lot of the conversations that happen are, we're looking at formulations and we're saying, like, okay, how do we improve this? How do we make this our own? Like, how do these pair together? So it's really, I have a friend who was our formulator at MBL. And so I'm always, like, running stuff by, hey, what do you think about this? And, I love this industry because, like you said, we all help each other out. And it's so beautiful. Like, if
Yeah.
they need marketing help, they come to me, and I'm happy to just, like, jump in and give them some advice. So it really is a nice little community. But yeah, I
It
think a lot of it is, finding the best fit as far as formula for what these practitioners are teaching. And a lot of times that's not existing even right now, or it's little tweaks that you can make to make it a better fit for their audience and what they're looking for.
So what Allie's talking about is doing custom products, which is, it's that's a whole nother animal in itself. We
It
did do
is.
some product development with one of my clients, and it's a pretty significant investment when you're creating your own products. So, that's not obviously for the startups, but yeah,
Correct.
thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
So based on the practices that you work with, what do you feel are most providers need the most help with when it comes to marketing and patient communication, getting their name out there?
Yeah, I think most practitioners, for me, they get stuck on, like, what to say. So a lot of it is establishing, like, what do you want to be known for? Like, carving out your niche. And then a lot of them will struggle with, well, I know I should be posting on social media, and I see everyone posting and I see them growing, but I'm not sure, like, what I want to educate about. So I often am working with people that are still, they have a brick and mortar, and they're trying to pull themselves out of that and kind of establish their brand a little bit more online and work on, like, courses and memberships and more passive income. But because their brick and mortar was successful and they had, a great local audience, they didn't really have to like specify what they stood for because they were getting, this local traffic. So a lot of them, it's interesting because they might have a clinic that's making really good money. And then it's like, well, now it's a little bit of a different step when I get to like be online and establishing my brand. So, and I'm sure you do a lot of this too, is figuring out their avatar. Like, who's your ideal client? Who do you want to help the most? You can't, have it be so broad where you're like, ooh, I work with everyone. I can do a little bit of everything. I think it's always better to have at least one or a couple different places of focus, and that's going to guide, of course, your content. And so once we get kind of that established, I think a lot of it is establishing like your offers. Like, what do you want as a lead magnet? How is that getting them to a tripwire? How is that getting them to like a signature program? And what's your upsell? And all the marketing terms that we could throw around. But it's really establishing like, what are you known for? And then how are you going to get clients through this funnel from when they just become aware of you up until, trusting you and converting. And so a lot of it is a lot of strategy on the front end, I find. And once you kind of
Yep.
sit down and have these conversations and big picture conversations, help them figure out their goals and where they want to go, then you can really sit down and, okay, now we know where we're going. Let's create content based on that. Because if you're just floating around, of course, you're not going to know what content to create. You shouldn't know because you're not even sure where you want to go. So I think a lot of it is that front end. And then once you kind of give them some ideas and some templates, a lot of times, they're able to kind of take it and run with it, which is what we want. We don't want to always have to be, okay, do this now, go record this. Like, we want to like teach them skills and kind of get them moving on their own. So I think that's definitely one piece. And then just like understanding the piece of how do you deliver value to patients? And I'm such a like trust-driven, value-driven, education-forward marketer versus how do you make money off of it? And how do you do that in like an ethical way that aligns with your morals? So there's like such a dance in the chronic illness space of, yes, you want to sell. And how do you do that while still being like conscious of, we don't want to create these like false sense of urgency or fear tactics, or, the people that my practitioners are working with, their little nervous systems are already so overwhelmed. They're so sick and they've been sick for a long time. So a lot of it for me is like this, I call it empathy-led marketing. So how do you speak to someone that's been sick for that long and still make money? Of course, you have to sustain your business. You have to pay the bills and everything like that. So what's the balance of that? So I think those are kind of the main things that I'm seeing with practitioners.
And I love that you shared that because it reminded me of one practitioner that I was speaking to, and they had an ethical issue with like selling supplements. And I was
Mm,
like, but you're prescribing vitamin D, right? Well,
yeah.
yes, but I'm just not selling it. Well, right, but they're going to go to Amazon and buy it either way. So,
Anyway.
we're so blessed. We work with such a great group of practitioners, that
Mhm.
really care about the patient and really
Yeah,
care about healing. And I think sometimes they get in their own way, thinking that,
totally.
that it's not okay for them to make a living. It's not okay for
Right.
them to, benefit from the healing journey. And Allie and I are here to tell you it's okay,
It
because
is
if you
okay.
can't pay your bills and you can't hire people, you're not going to be around to be able to help more people. So you have to look at it, as this is what's going to allow you to continue to help more people in the future. And we're all about ROI and making sure that our physicians, are profitable. And, it's tough, especially in the beginning. You got to be looking at all of those little ways that you can definitely capitalize in anything that revenue wise that you can bring into the company. So I love that you shared that. What are the most common struggles that you're seeing providers face when they're trying to get their message out or trying to get people to convert, website visitors to actual patients?
Yeah. I think one thing I see is that practitioners are a little bit timid about sharing their story, especially if there's someone that's been through their own chronic illness journey. And they're like, well, I don't want them to see me as like weak, or, I might have a bad day. I don't want to appear to be not this like hero that's healthy all the time. And so I always encourage them, that is going to build trust. If you're able to go back and share, like, hey, I had Hashimoto's and I was sick for 10 years and here's how I got better. of course that establishes so much credibility and trust because you've been through it yourself. And I think, that's important to patients, but I've had a few practitioners who are just afraid of how they'll look and how they'll appear if they're vulnerable like that. And so I'm always encouraging my clients to do like behind the scenes, like grab your cell phone and just, if you have a morning routine, just grab it and record yourself like 2-3 minutes. I drink my green juice in the morning and I do this breathing meditation, or whatever you're doing. I think people with the advent of AI are still craving authenticity and this human connection. So I'm actually moving more away from these scripted videos and like produce things with practitioners, and hey, throw in some behind the scenes content, throw in like what's your lunch you're making on a random Wednesday. Like people want to see that. So I think just giving them, like, empowering practitioners to like kind of pull back the curtain a little bit and show people that you're a real human. I really think that's what people are craving now. And for patients trying to find the right fit, they want to connect with you as a person. So I think that's one thing. I think another one is just like we said, trying to speak to everyone in general instead of really like understanding your ideal avatar and speaking to that person. So one question I often ask is like, hey, what is your ideal client Googling at 3 a.m. because they're not feeling well? Like, what are they looking up? What symptoms are they Googling? What kind of things are they trying to solve? And if we can kind of get in the mindset of that ideal client and understand like what are they trying to fix on their own, or even people now using chat gpt as Google, what are they chat gpting at 2 a.m, and how can you sort of like come in and support that and create a solution and understand like the demographics, but also the psychographics. And like, I'm sure you do this too, but I always have them even like name their avatar. Like, give me an exact age, give me their actual job title, give me everything you can about this person, so that when you're creating your marketing, that's the person in your head. You can't be this like general marketer. So I think a lot of it too is just knowing there's so many marketing tactics out there now and knowing which are a good fit for them. And it's a lot of pressure. Like, do I need to be on every single social channel and posting, every single day? Do I need a podcast? Do I need a book? I definitely have clients who like every week it's a new huge, massive project that may take us 1 to 2 years. And it's like, okay, last week we talked about outlining a book and now you want to start a podcast. Let's sit down and talk about like what's the right order to do all of this in. And a lot of times if it's someone new, I'm like, well, do you even have like a welcome series set up yet? Like, let's like go back to the basics of how are we getting leads into our email list, and like what's the the experience for them as they're coming in. So I think it's also like there's so many amazing great ideas out there, and it's kind of like, okay, let's actually sit down and put an order together. I think that's really helpful. And that's why people like us are around, because we can, you and I can help them sit down and really strategically prioritize what's going to make the most impact.
And I 100% agree with you, Allie. It's all about authenticity now, right? And I love when I go in and look at these practitioners' websites, or I go in and look at their social media, and I'm like, yeah, you've got all this great information about your practice, and you've got this beautiful website, and you've got all these beautiful, well-written posts about what you do, but I don't see anything here about you.
Yes.
You, the practitioner. The
Mhm.
About Us page, they don't even have their picture or their bio. I'm like, people want to work with people that they know, like, and trust, right? People want to deal with a person, not a company. And it's something about physicians, clinicians, practitioners. They try, I think, to reduce their they don't want to have this big ego type of,
Right.
they don't want to be perceived as somebody that's got a big ego. But
Mhm.
this is not what we're talking about. This is not about you having a big ego. This is about educating your potential client base, your potential patients,
Right.
who you are
Yeah.
and what made you get into this business. Why did you do this? Why did you go from traditional medicine to integrative and holistic or functional medicine, right? And people really resonate with that. So I love that you shared that, because I do think that, that's something, when we're working on brand strategy too. And I love, the brand story framework. I tell my clinicians, make sure you have your brand strategy in place. Make sure you understand, what your messaging is. It should sound like you.
Yeah.
It should be you emulating, your business through these platforms. So I love that you shared that.
Yeah.
Now I know you've built some great DIY resources, which I don't offer. So I thought that was really cool. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how it works and how it helps providers and who's getting started or want to improve things on their own?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So one thing that I discovered, because we mostly work on retainer, but at a certain point, even like we didn't have the capacity to take on new clients. So I was like, how do I help people that maybe can't afford to or don't want to hire an agency or hire a marketing person? And so there's a lot of practitioners I met through working at these supplement companies who they might have one EA and that's it. They might have like one front desk person, and other than that they're shipping out the supplements, they're the ones cleaning up, they're doing out opening, closing, all of it. So how do I help this practitioner who's still like hungry to grow and wants to scale and wants to put the work in? So what we created right now, we have a couple of different courses, but the Wellness Empire Blueprint, there's basically modules that are 1 month long, and each of them has sort of like a marketing theme. So we have one that's on email marketing, and it takes them through the very basics of like, what CRMs, what ESPs, what platform to pick essentially. And then how do we set up basic automations, and how do we, segment and tag, and like all the things that I'm sure you've kind of gone into clients backends before and like, oh, I wish they would have had this information because nothing's segmented, or all the things that you want them to learn on the front end. If you're just getting it set up, like how do you actually do it correctly? So it's very like 101 of everything. But if you want to, like, for
That's
example,
great.
get started on social media, like here's how to pick your channels and here's what's important on that channel to grow, and all of these things. We do have those. And then we also have obviously our practitioner archetype, which will help them pick, like based on their archetype and sort of based on their needs, it'll help them decide their DIY resources. And then we also have a shop that has like templates they can purchase, and a lot of them are based on their archetype's voice. So it's like if you are a rebel disruptor and you want a welcome series, you can buy it, and then it's just fill in the blanks that they can dump in, like add a story about yourself for the hook, or there's little spaces that are highlighted for them to kind of fill it in so it doesn't sound exactly like a template. And so it's just like little ways for these startup practitioners to get a little boost. They're like, ooh, I know it's been on my list, I know I need to do this. So there's like guides and checklists and all these kinds of things. But yeah, the courses have been really
Great.
helpful for people, and they're short and they're digestible, and they have templates and things in there. It's a one-time purchase, and we do have our support is in our Facebook group. So as long as you buy one module, you'll get access to our Facebook group, and that's where, like, if you want to ask questions and if you want to get feedback on things, like, it's very hands-on, so they can jump into there and have other practitioners. So it's kind of fun because people are in different modules, so you kind of get to see. It's actually designed to be this like 2-year course. So if somebody did want to, like, I'm going to spend the next 2 years building every single marketing piece I could ever want. Like we talked about podcasts, ebooks, like all memberships even is the more advanced side of it. So there's people that have like gone through the journey, and they're kind of like able to mentor people who are on, the early front end of it. And it's really cute. They're like, oh, I remember that module. Oh, let me look at your subject lines. And did you remember this? So I'm always looking for ways to build community. That's like a huge piece of how I love, to market. And I don't think I told you this, but I run a nonprofit social club where I live, and we have 18,000 members. So it's just like my little side job is, how do I bring people together? I'm such a connector. So it's,
I'm the same way. It's funny. I run a nonprofit too.
so
Oh
funny.
my gosh, I
I
love
love
that. So,
it.
so what kind of investment are these doctors looking at? Just because I like to be real transparent on the show, and kind of, do you have you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting to quote rates, but
No, it's fine. No, I mean, the courses are affordable. So the courses are $497 for a whole month module. So
okay,
it's barely, it's a little bit of an investment, but it comes with all the support and all the tools and everything like that. So they're all priced exactly the same.
okay,
And then all the shop tools, the cheapest one I think is like $9.99. So like $10 for a little template. And they go up to maybe like $40. So they're not too expensive. I just want to make it, affordable for people. And I know I have such a soft spot for kind of like startup practitioners because I've worked with a lot of them, and I'm like, I want to be able to help you, but I know that you can't afford like a whole retainer right now. And, project-based stuff is out of your reach, which I get. So yeah, I try to keep it so that everyone feels like it's something that they can invest in.
I love that. And yeah, I always tell practitioners the first thing that you should offload when you can is marketing, right? Because we
100%.
want them to practice medicine. We want them to focus on the
Yes.
business. We want them to spend their extra time with their families, right? We don't want them burning out.
Yeah.
And marketing is the first thing that they should get off their back. However, in that first year or two, when it's really, really, hard and difficult financially, to have this
Mhm.
DIY stuff that you're offering. And I know just based on what you just told me, how long it took you to create that content. I mean, and all of not just the time that it took you to create the content, but the years of knowledge that you put into that.
Mm.
What a great value.
Yeah.
So I love that. And we'll definitely be doing a reel about that because I want to let people know. Because people, I turn people down all the time that can't afford my retainers. And to be
Right.
honest with you, I don't know where to send them. I mean,
Yeah.
Google it, but now you have something that's specifically created for them. So I love that. So in the essence of time, because we are running out of time, what are some of the trends that you're seeing, how providers are showing up online or running their marketing now? Like what are some of the things that you're like, this is really cool. And, you're seeing a lot of engagement or you're seeing a lot of,
Yeah.
additional business coming from it.
So I have a very crazy prediction.
Let's
So
hear
I think that I honestly think that everyone is going to move all the way toward long form content. And like I know now everyone's saying, okay, people are only scrolling, they're only watching videos for 4 seconds. I'm going to keep cutting my content down and down and down because people's attention spans, allegedly can't handle it. And I feel like what's going to happen is we're going to go the entire opposite direction, because think about podcasts are still so popular and that's very long form content.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that we're going to push all the way back to this like almost nostalgic area of marketing. I don't know if you've seen this trend in the last week. This is like very trending, but on Instagram, I've seen so many 2016 throwbacks where it's like, what were you doing 10 years ago? Post pictures of you 10 years ago. And they're pulling all these trends back from 2016. So I think that people are getting tired of this like quick, like, flashy, short marketing. And I really think we're going to see a swing all the way back to long videos, long podcasts, all these longer form things. And then a lot of like nostalgia marketing. Like I think, AI has kind of segregated, two different thought camps. Some people love it. Some people are like, ooh, this is going to take jobs from me. But I do think eventually we're going to see authentic is going to always win. Like a practitioner getting on a video and talking and, showing who they are. Like you said, as a person, that's what patients want. So I truly think we're going to get back to this like vlog style or this like, Instagram is not going to be the place. There's going to be some kind of like MySpace type, resurgence where people are just like, I want simple. I want something simple. I want to feel like I'm being seen. I don't want to feel like I'm one of a million people on Instagram trying to like fight for attention. So I think we're going to see a long form content resurgence and a lot of kind of nostalgic, like what was happening 10 years ago, I think is going to come back in marketing.
I think you're right about that. I think we're going to see, when I'm not working, I'm like, off technology. Like I just,
Yeah.
put the phones down. Let's have authentic connection, right? So I think we are getting back to that. So thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show today, to come and meet with, a supposed competitor and, and share with me how we can help practitioners grow their practices. I love it. And how can practitioners reach you if they're interested in your DIY or they need help on their content or they need help
Yeah.
with getting their supplement store up? How do they reach you?
Definitely. Yeah. I think the easiest thing is just upsellhealth.com/start. And that will show you like everything from the practitioner quiz, the courses, working with us if you'd like to. So that kind of has a summary of everything on there. So upsellhealth.com/start is probably the easiest way for you to find us.
I love it. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.